Sometimes humans just don't care about what's possible. Gravity, logic, and safety are not deal breakers. They're just minor stuff. If there's a wild, ridiculous spot to build something, we'll do it. From buildings clinging to the edges of cliffs to entire communities somehow surviving on strips of land barely wider than a sidewalk, here are 15 things built in impossible locations. Let's start off with number 15, the International Space Station. The ISS orbits Earth at 250 miles above us, flying through hell with a view. It's circling our planet at 17,500 miles per hour, doing 15 laps a day. That means astronauts see 16 sunrises and sunsets every 24 hours. But don't be mad. This place is brutal. Space debris, micrometeoroids, and temperature swings of plus or minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's your daily forecast. It took over 2 decades to build, piece by piece, with astronauts bolting on modules in zero gravity during 8-hour spacewalks. Inside, 6 people live on a strict schedule, 10-hour workdays, 2 hours of exercise to stop their bones from vanishing, and sleeping in floating bags tethered to the wall. Their water, recycled from sweat and breath. Their food, rehydrated mush. So why risk it all? Low Earth orbit gives scientists microgravity to test drugs, materials, and physics experiments that Earth could never replicate. It's science at the edge, delicate, dangerous, and absolutely awe-inspiring. Number 14. Mont Saint-Michel. Mont Saint-Michel isn't just a French postcard. It's a medieval miracle slammed into the middle of a shifting tidal bay. Sitting just off Normandy's coast, this rocky island rises like a dream from the sea, crowned by a soaring abbey that's been daring the tides since the 8th century. But building it? That was borderline madness. The tides here are savage, rising and falling up to 46 feet a day. Miss your arrival window, and the sea swallows the only path in. The island itself is solid granite, unbreakable, immovable, and horrible to build on. Monks and masons dragged in timber and stone during narrow low-tide windows, hauling everything up the steep incline by hand or oxen. Over centuries, the abbey grew upward, layer by layer, braving floods, storms, and isolation. Today, even with a causeway bridge, getting there still feels like crossing into a forgotten realm. Number 13. Kailasa Temple. The Kailasa Temple in India wasn't built. It was carved, straight into a mountain. Sitting inside the Ellora Caves, this temple is the world's largest monolithic structure. Think about that. One giant rock, 200,000 tons chiseled by hand. Built between 757 and 783 AD, it was dedicated to Lord Shiva and designed to mimic Mount Kailash, his cosmic home. The scale is jaw-dropping, but what really melts minds is the method. They started from the top and carved down. No cranes, no blueprints, just chisels, hammers, and relentless human will. Engineers estimate it took over 2 decades to carve the entire complex. Not build, carve. The temple's intricate columns, sculptures, and chambers are still intact today, standing in silent defiance of time. In the 17th century, a Mughal emperor tried to destroy it. After years of effort, they barely scratched it. Well, no monks or sadhu live here now, but Kailasa still radiates a darkish mystery. Number 12. Beijing's rooftop mountain villa. On top of a 26-story residential building in Beijing sits something that shouldn't exist. A freaking mountaintop villa. Fake rocks, trees, grass, and all. No permits, no approval, just one eccentric professor who spent 6 secretive years building his fantasy hideaway in the sky. It sprawls across 8,600 square feet and adds 2 stories to a building that was never meant to hold anything heavier than a few satellite dishes. And how'd he do it? By working only at night, hauling materials up the side of the building with ropes. Residents below complained about loud noises and debris raining onto their balconies. But somehow this architectural crime scene stayed untouched for years, in the heart of Beijing's most strictly regulated district. This wasn't just a bad idea, it was a walking safety hazard, structurally unstable, illegally constructed, and absolutely unmissable. Eventually, the government came knocking, but for a while, this mountaintop fantasy floated high above the law and the city. Number 11. Nail houses. Welcome to China's wildest architectural protest, the nail house. These are homes that refuse to die, standing defiantly in the middle of highways, shopping malls, and construction zones like stubborn middle fingers to the system. The name comes from the idea of a nail that just won't be hammered down. One legendary example? A two-story house in Wuling that sat square in the middle of a four-lane road, like a real-life glitch in the Matrix. The elderly couple who lived there rejected compensation, saying it wasn't enough to buy a similar home elsewhere. So, the government built the road around them. Traffic whooshed by on both sides for years. Utilities were cut, access was dangerous, and yet they stayed. In Changsha, another family refused to leave, so developers built a mall around their home. They now enter through service corridors like real-world ghosts in the machine. These aren't just homes. They're war cries against forced eviction. Number 10. Sea forts. Rising out of the murky waters of the Thames estuary like rusting alien walkers, the Sea forts are straight out of a dystopian dream. Built during World War II to defend Britain against Nazi air raids, these metal beasts were perched on stilts 30 feet above water, planted in the sea miles from shore. Think oil rig meets Mad Max. The logistics were insane. Each fort had to be built on land, floated out on barges, and then sunk into place, while dealing with unpredictable tides, storms, and constant enemy threats. Crews lived isolated lives out there, manning anti-aircraft guns with no backup and no land in sight. After the war, they were abandoned. Some were destroyed by storms or collisions, others repurposed by pirate radio stations in the 60s. Today, red sands and shivering sands remain, silent, rusted, and haunting. Half-forgotten war relics that somehow still stand, defying time, tide, and sanity. Number 9. The Buzzard Platform. Smack in the middle of the North Sea, about 62 miles from Scotland's coast, the Buzzard Platform doesn't just battle waves, it stares down monsters. This massive offshore oil rig stands in waters over 300 feet deep, constantly assaulted by 30-foot swells and violent winds. It's not a workplace. It's a floating fortress in enemy territory. Construction was an engineering odyssey. Giant modules were assembled on land, shipped out on mammoth barges, and lowered with surgical precision. Steel legs were driven deep into the seabed, designed to flex with the sea's tantrums. Every bolt mattered. One misalignment could wreck the entire thing. Life here runs on tight rotations. Workers arrive by helicopter, live in a high-stakes, oil-scented steel island for 2 weeks, then fly out, hopefully before the next storm. Machinery hums 24/7, corrosion fights back daily, and there's zero margin for error. All right, guys, now, let's move to number 8, La Rinconada. At 16,732 feet above sea level, La Rinconada in Peru isn't just the world's highest permanent settlement. It's a high-altitude dare. Nestled deep in the Peruvian Andes, this mining town exists in a place where most humans wouldn't last a week. The air is so thin your lungs practically tap out after a few steps. Oxygen levels drop like a rock, and hypoxia isn't just a risk, it's a lifestyle. Nearly a quarter of the residents live with chronic oxygen deprivation. So why would anyone live here? One word: gold. This freezing, windswept town grew from a tiny prospector's camp into a gold-fueled survival zone. Homes are slapped together with whatever's available, scrap metal, wood, stone, offering little defense against the brutal cold. There's one underfunded clinic, no real sanitation, and garbage everywhere. Mercury pollution from mining makes it worse. Roads are deadly, infrastructure's a joke, and yet people stay, chasing fortune. Number 7. Coober Pedy. Coober Pedy, deep in South Australia's outback, is what happens when humans say, the surface? Nah. With summer temperatures regularly above 104 degrees Fahrenheit and barely 6 inches of rainfall a year, this place is a frying pan with no shade. So instead of building up, residents went down. Locals carved homes, called dugouts, straight into sandstone hills. These underground spaces stay a comfy 75 degrees Fahrenheit all year. But digging isn't just a shovel and sweat job. You need jackhammers, tunnel borers, and truck-sized vacuums to clear the waste rock. Plumbing and ventilation, dug by hand and placed with precision, or you'll be breathing your own CO2. It's not just homes either. There are churches, bars, art galleries, and even entire hotels buried underground. Life here is dusty, isolated, and weirdly beautiful. Water's pricier than gas. Supplies come by truck, and everyone's either mining opals or hunting for them in tailings. Number 6. Skellig Michael. Imagine being so done with society that you build a monastery on a chunk of rock rising straight out of the Atlantic. That's Skellig Michael, an Irish island 7 miles off the coast of County Kerry, and probably one of the most absurdly placed religious sites ever. Between the 6th and 8th centuries, a group of monks climbed this jagged nightmare and said, "Yeah, this'll do." The summit reaches 714 feet, with the monastery perched about 600 feet up, clinging to narrow stone steps carved into the cliff itself. There's no farmland, no easy access, and absolutely no reason to live here, unless you're chasing divine solitude in the most hardcore way possible. Wind gusts can hit hurricane strength, and the crashing waves below are pure intimidation. Yet these monks built dry stone beehive huts by hand and survived on fish, birds, and eggs. It's less a settlement and more a spiritual boot camp in hellish conditions, and people kept coming back for centuries. Number 5. Montreal's underground city. Underneath the chaos of downtown Montreal is a secret city, a 20-mile labyrinth of climate-controlled tunnels connecting offices, malls, hotels, and homes. Known as Réseau, this isn't just an underground mall. It's a full-blown subterranean lifestyle that over 500,000 people use every day. Built beneath one of the busiest parts of the city, this network wasn't easy to create. The tunnels weave under rocks from Mount Royal and crowded neighborhoods while dodging utilities, metro lines, and ancient infrastructure. Engineers had to dig deep while keeping everything above intact. One misstep could have shut down half the city. Even today, maintaining this maze is a constant battle. In 2007, a massive crack threatened part of the system, forcing emergency reinforcements. But it held. The city keeps evolving around it, and so does Réseau. Whether you're escaping snow or grabbing lunch, Montreal's underground city proves that living beneath the surface isn't just possible, it's practical, futuristic, and weirdly cozy. Number 4. The medieval city of Carcassonne. This double-walled medieval city in southern France looms over the Aude River like it's still waiting for an invading army. But building a stronghold on this steep, rocky ridge 500 feet up? That took stubbornness, sweat, and an absurd level of patience. Early Roman engineers had to drag massive stones up loose slopes, sinking towers deep into bedrock to keep them upright. Its 52 towers, curved to deflect cannonballs and catapults, weren't just for show. Every wall, gate, and pathway was a defense tactic in stone. Even restoring it centuries later meant hauling materials by hand up narrow medieval streets. Rainwater was rerouted underground. Supplies still come in on foot. At its peak, 4,000 people lived inside these walls. As of now, Well, a small community and a few lucky business owners keep the place alive, dealing with sky-high costs. Number 3. Lagangarb Hut. Lagangarb Hut looks like something out of a Scottish fairy tale. A tiny white cottage surrounded by towering peaks and stormy skies, tucked beside the River Coupal near the A82 road. But don't let its storybook vibes fool you. This place is rugged, remote, and brutally exposed. It sits beneath the hulking presence of Boischail Etive Moor, a jagged 3,300-foot mountain known for flash storms, wind blasts, and unpredictable weather. The river nearby is flooded, and the paths are muddy and rough. Access beyond the main road is all on foot, not exactly a weekend getaway. Originally built for local crofters living off the land, the hut was part of a self-reliant Highland community. Today it's managed by the Scottish Mountaineering Club and serves as a refuge for hikers, climbers, and those willing to brave the wild. Inside it's basic but sturdy, no frills, just a roof, a bunk, and a reminder that comfort sometimes comes from the challenge itself. Number 2. Tatev Monastery. This monastery doesn't just sit on a cliff, it rules over one. Perched like a stone sentinel above the Vorotan River Gorge in southeastern Armenia, this medieval masterpiece defies logic and gravity. Built over 1,000 years ago, it stands on a plateau 6,000 feet above sea level, with cliffs plunging 3,300 feet to the valley below. Today, you can glide over the drop in a cable car, but back then, no luxury lifts. Everything, stones, food, people, was hauled up narrow mountain passes on foot or mule. Even crazier, this wasn't just a monastery. In the 14th century, Tatev was a booming university and cultural hub. The monks weren't just praying, they were teaching, studying, and surviving harsh winters and rugged isolation. Life up here meant growing your own food, creating your own infrastructure, and braving brutal terrain just to exist. The modern world has eased the path to Tatev, but its isolated heart still beats with the spirit of those who built it against all odds. Number 1. Adi Island. Imagine a tiny house on a deserted island, completely alone, surrounded by cliffs and puffins. Welcome to Adi, a remote Icelandic island where a lone hunting lodge sits like it was dropped there by a Viking ghost. The island itself is rugged, wild, and barely accessible. Reaching it involves navigating icy seas and landing on a narrow beach, if the weather doesn't turn on you first. Built in 1953 by a hunting association, this cabin is often dubbed the world's loneliest house. There are no roads, no neighbors, no utilities, just wind, cliffs, and a deafening silence. Myths swirled for years that Icelandic singer Björk owned it. But nope, it's just a hardcore hunting lodge. No one lives here permanently. When used, it's for a brief escape, not a lifestyle. Staying a night means braving isolation that borders on the spiritual. There's no Wi-Fi, no distractions, just nature in its rawest form. And that maybe is the whole point. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.